Honestly, at first I was a bit dismayed. Then, of course, the more that we researched it, I was upset. I was I felt guilty. Um, understanding that this came about because of my genes. Um, so a little bit of guilt, but I guess all of it mainly turned to determination. Determined to try to make my children's life as the same as everyone else's, giving them the opportunity to achieve, to be good at something, to be great at a lot of things. That's that's my goal. The guilt is that you started them out with something that below, or you started them out with a deficit, because most of society goes with visual cues. So you started them out behind, which is the last thing a father ever wants to have for their child. Makes me more determined to find the cure. You know, it just it just makes me more determined. I want to maybe part of it's selfishness, to get rid of that guilt. But I think a lot of it has to do with just wanting a better life for our children. I would have become more involved much quicker. I would have reached out much quicker. Um, Initially, I believe that we didn't know where to go with it. We didn't know where to start. We had no knowledge that there was actually a support system out there. And what I mean by support system, there are many different avenues that you could go. Even as little as just calling up the foundation and saying, you know, I have a newborn who has this issue, this sight issue. Where do we start? More than likely, it would start with them getting them in contact with someone like me. Even though I'm only 6 years experienced in it, 6 years ago or 5.5 years ago, if I knew what I knew now, I would become extremely involved in the foundation. I would strive every year to just double, if not triple, the contributions that we create to the foundation. Again, striving for the cure. The sooner, the better. I think the biggest thing you have to deal with is I guess, to have the mental fortitude of understanding that they are different, that they may not see the world the way other people see the world. They may not know that certain things are improper, that other things are not the norm, so it would be considered outlandish or abnormal or not acceptable. Teaching them basically the rules of society, which may or may not be good or bad. It's just that you have certain rules of society that they have to abide by, or they will be placed or labeled. And it's probably my biggest fear is them being labeled more than anything else. Most of the time when you're out in public, we do try to encourage them to use their canes. So it's fairly obvious that you don't have to, physically tell someone that, look, I got a 6 and a 4-year-old. probably a little bit wild, especially considering the fact that they can't see where they're about to run. But you know, they get around remarkably well, remarkably well. With the genetic research that's going on today, it's remarkable to see how the progression is. Not only with blindness, but with other diseases as well. Um, the the map to the DNA world, I think, is opening up, which is phenomenal, especially for issues that really could change people's lives. So, do I think we're close? Um, I think we're a lot closer than what we were 10 years ago. Um, are we as close as I'd like to be? No, because I'd like for the gene pool to call us and say, "Hey, you're next on the list. We're really working on yours." But the I just have to have hope. Um, one of my dreams is, for my son to actually be able to drive a car. He's fantastic with the and staying in the parameters of the yard right now with his toys, but I think that's very important for me, and I believe for him. With the breakthroughs in the research, you know, Federation Fighting Blindness, they are the forefront. They are the ones that are pushing that scientific research. There are other organizations out there that strive to help individuals with blindness, but their focus is different, in that their focus is trying to have individuals being able to cope with life, or cope with what would be termed as normal, or what the rest of society feels is normal. Where the Federation of Fighting Blindness is concerned, it strives to find the answers. And in my opinion, that is really the focus, because we've found success. And if we've found success in certain areas, then success is going to come down the road in other areas as well. I mean, you can see that throughout the world's history, that there were diseases that wiped out entire civilizations. They're not even heard of today. This is a driving force. We're getting there. And money is money, and yes, it drives a lot of things, but the real force here is the desire to find the cure. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that. And I think that the FFB is at the forefront of that research. I think the monies, go towards that important goal of finding that link. They both know that they're blind. They remarkably accept it as a fact, which probably enlightens me a lot. And that whether, because they don't ask, why can't I see, or they don't get mad that they can't see, or they don't need me to justify why they can't see. It's so they really don't have any qualms in being blind. It's just a part of their life. It's the way it should be as far as they're concerned. Individuals who have had eyesight most, if not all, of their life, and then gradually or suddenly lose it because of these diseases, it has to be traumatic, whereby they feel or want to give up. And that can't happen either. Now, children like mine who have never known sight, or let me rephrase that, have never known the same sight that most of us know, I believe that by them being corrected or cured, that it would open up their lives even more. I think that because of having both versions of sight, I think that they could be very beneficial to society, especially the way my son thinks about things, or the way my son sees things. He is incredibly inquisitive, and at first it seemed to be fairly annoying, the constant questions as to, it's just something as mundane as he's touching the lug nut on the car, and so he wants to know what the lug nut is, and so I explain what the lug nut is, and what's it attached to? Well, it keeps the wheel on the car. Well, what's the wheel attached to? Well, it's attached to an axle, and and so on and so forth, and that's attached to the drive shaft, which goes to the engine, and so on. And with all of these questions, it seemed to be pestering at first, but then after a while, I figured out his questions are because he is actually visualizing this in his head, or he is seeing it the way he sees things, which was very eye-opening, very enlightening to look at the world in a different way. When they walk outside, they don't necessarily know it's sunny because it's bright. They know it's sunny because they feel the heat. There may be some type of stimulation from the actual sunlight, but just the other feelings that they have and the way they see, again, is different than us. And I think that if they had both, I think it would be beneficial. I do honestly believe that Chris and I strive to make sure that we don't deny the kids of anything, meaning that we have electric vehicles for them. And yes, there are times that I need to replace the rain gutters because they do get wiped out, or there are times that I need to take care of the bushes because they run into the bushes. But we don't in any way restrict them. We kind of encourage them, to go ice skating. It's kind of remarkable when you go ice skating with two blind children how open the ice gets in front of you, and there's not so many people skating in front of you, but we try not to restrict them in any way, unless there's a safety issue, of course. Am I guilty of overprotecting? Yes, because I think we're over-preparing them for things. Some people think I'm a little too dangerous with things. And dangerous is not a good word for that. But I think I try to make sure that my children understand the dangers of certain things. Prime example, the lawnmower. Okay, I don't want them to be afraid of the lawnmower. However, I do want them to understand and respect what a lawnmower can do. I don't want them to be afraid of it because I don't want them to be walking down the street and someone start a lawnmower or chainsaw or whatever the case may be, and they feel that they are in danger because they have no idea it's just a loud sound to them.